Hey everybody, this is Sinclair here, and welcome to Redstone for Beginners. Now, some of you viewing this may know a fair amount about Redstone and may have just kind of stumbled upon this. If that is true, this probably isn't for you. This is going to be covering essentially the bare basics of Redstone and what it's used for. So, first of all, for those of you who don't know much about it, Redstone is designed to be an awful lot like a circuit board. So you'll see things that are like LEDs, capacitors, transistors, these components that go into everyday electronics that you know and love. But for this, first things first, we're going to talk about the power levels of Redstone. It's measured from 0 to 15. And you can see here, when I hit this switch, it is powering this line of redstone. Now, right at the beginning here, you can see that there's a difference in color in the redstone wire. It's very bright red here, and as you go down, it gets darker and darker and darker until here at the end, where it's not powered anymore, it's almost black. Now, what this represents is, here, we're talking about power level 15, which goes all the way down bit by bit until we get down to here, where you can see it's still got a little bit of power. That's power level 1. Now, that doesn't really matter much for if you're doing something very simple, like, you're going to turn on a single piston, or you've got to maneuver something around a corner. That doesn't really matter so much for that. Later on, when you begin to assemble much more complex components for greater designs, the power level moving from point A to point B becomes a lot more important. But for now, let's just move on. This is just something you should remember. 15 block range for just, powering one thing. So, moving on. We'll come over here. Now, when we're talking about powering just a block, this is not even a redstone component, it's just powering something. Bam. You can see here that the redstone hits. I'm using redstone lamps to show how power is maneuvering between blocks, because you can see here it isn't just powering that one block here, it's powering the blocks which are attached to it as well. Which is very important to note, because sometimes you can power something indirectly, which becomes, once again, like I mentioned, it becomes important very much later. But that is an example of that right there. Okay, so yeah, there you go. And then we come over here. Now, this is talking about just switches in particular. This is if you just put a switch onto a block, this is what it powers. Now you can see it not only powers the block that it's attached to, which powers the blocks around it, it also powers the blocks around it. Now, if I put another redstone lamp on top of it, you would see that it was powered as well. That's something to be aware of later on in your redstone careers, is once again, you can power things indirectly. Now let's talk about, hold on, let me just get rid of this sign here so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so let's talk about pressure plates. Now, this is the most common usage for pressure plates. You run into it, it opens your door, and it closes the door behind you. That's awfully cool. You can also do it the opposite way. If you don't want to let people in, you just put it behind, and it closes it for you. That's very, very helpful, like, even in just single player, and I would actually probably think especially in single player. Because you're running around and you think you're in a safe area, and you just need to make sure that those doors stay closed to not let in a creeper. And then you come back to your home and suddenly there's a friggin' creeper there, and then you die. No one wants that. That's not fun for anybody. So, there is that. Now, there is a difference between the pressure plates. There's 4 of them. You've got wooden, stone, and then, here, let me bring that up. You've got stone pressure plates, wooden pressure plates, weighted pressure plate light and weighted pressure plate heavy. I'm going to talk about for now just stone and wooden. Like I said, this is just very basic. The only real difference, because you can kind of tell here, it doesn't there's no difference in the timing on their power, especially. However, you can see, if I throw that rock on there, that stone, nothing happens. However, if I throw it on the wooden one, it lights up. That is because the stone pressure plate will only activate for mobs. That's players, mobs, creatures running around. However, the wooden pressure plate will activate for almost anything. Basically, just not snowballs. So yeah, that is really the only difference between these two. However, when we talk about buttons, there is a major difference in timing specifically about these. Now I'll just talk about briefly. You can see it powers once again the block it's on and the blocks that are around that one. However, you might notice that the wooden button powers for significantly longer than the stone button. Let me try that again. Yeah. See, there you go. So that's something to consider for once again, for like in single player applications. That's something you would use for security, just to make sure, once again, you can just hit it and go in. Something like this probably isn't recommended for like PvP or anything like that, as they can, essentially just hit the button and go in after you. But for if you're just worried about mobs, just monsters, then that's fine. So there you go. That's buttons. So then we move over here. Now this is where we talk about pistons. So we got regular piston, sticky piston. Now let's put a few blocks on here. Now, bam, bam. Now you can see they push the blocks up, essentially the same. They can push a few blocks. I'll go into more detail on how all that works later, because it can be a little complicated depending on what types of blocks we're talking about. But then when we deactivate, you can see the sticky piston will take one block with it, which is extremely handy for immediately a certain situation, like with farming. You can set up an automatic farm where you hold back some water and you leave that activated, so you'd have like water right here, and then you would let it go, which would then collect the grain or whatever you had in your soil. It would collect that down, which can then be picked up, or if you wanted to, you could set up a hopper system, which would spit it all into a chest, which is something I can show you later if you like. Go ahead and put it in the comments, especially if you just have anything in particular that you want to see. Just put that in the comments, and I will get to it. But yeah, the major difference between these pistons is that the sticky piston will take one block with it. Now, some of you may really hate steel doors because you don't quite understand why they're useful. You have to power them to get them to work. That's, because you can't just walk up to it and try and open it. It doesn't work that way. In some servers, if you're doing multiplayer, they've removed that issue, which I actually think is probably a good idea. I mean, yeah, it's a steel door, but unless there's a lock on it, there's still hinges, so it should be able to move. Anyway, whatever. So that's not important. The thing here is that, yeah, you have to power it, but if you can set it up the right way, it makes they're a lot tougher than wooden doors. So I mean, in certain security situations, they're useful. There's a number of other uses. They're just not coming to me off the top of my head. But I can go into more detail about that in a future video. All right, so the last thing I'll mention in this video is you've probably seen a lot of TNT used, and most of the time you see them used with flint and steel, which just essentially lights them on fire. However, much like in real life, TNT can also be powered by redstone. Boom! so There you go. That is the very rudimentary, very basic intro into Redstone. I will be releasing videos on this pretty regularly. I imagine, not... Shut up, you. No one wants to hear your noise. I imagine I will probably be doing it, probably my regular Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If not, you know, get on to me and I'll make sure I do it. Like I said before, if you want to see something in particular, something outside of just, you know, my normal Redstone for Beginners series, go put it in the comments. I will happily do that for you. I love Redstone, just messing around with it. That's why I'm making this video, because it's something that a lot of people struggle with, because it's so similar to circuitry and circuit boards and things like that, that people get a little intimidated by it, just because it can do so much. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the videos of, you know, there's one out there of a scale model working toilet that will flush with a handle. There's these huge contraptions which are essentially little mini games, and it's all built on Redstone. And I'm sure you've seen the backs of those, where it's just these huge webs of Redstone. But it's not as complicated as I imagine you think it is. So I'm here to explain it to you and make it a little simpler. Just show you step by step and explain it in terms that are a little easier to understand. So thank you all very much for watching. Like I said, be sure to comment down below suggestions. Go ahead and like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I would love some feedback. So as always, this has been Sinclair, and until next time, take care and be well, everybody.